Torah TV. The world is thinking.
Now, I've written about American Muslims before, and I was in one of my articles, I interviewed a lot of women who say, and these are converts to Islam, who say that as an American woman, they prefer the Islamic way of looking at the world, and even to the point of dressing. You know, the way the conservative or religiously oriented Muslim women wear hijab, for example, and so on. A question from the audience is, how does an American Muslim explain the oppression of women in Islam? And I know that there's a perception of that, certainly, and obviously, not obviously, but within the American Muslim community, that you hear arguments both for and against that idea.
Yes, I hear this a lot. In fact, I overheard a conversation actually the last time that I was in Iran in which an American asked an Iranian, why do you force women to wear a headscarf to go out onto the streets? And the Iranian asked the American, why does it take a half-naked woman to sell power tools in your country? The thing about the veil is that it has always been a symbol, but it's what it actually stands for has shifted, of course, depending on cultural context and time. For the British colonialists in India and Egypt, the veil was a symbol of Islam's backwardness, and so they fought against it. Certainly not because they wanted to empower women. On the contrary, it's because they thought that it would be the sort of the impression of Western culture to allow women to dress how they want. What was interesting is that during those times there were no veil laws. In fact, the surge in women wearing veil, particularly in the Middle East, occurred in direct response to the colonial attempts to westernize these countries. As a man, it's hard for me to talk about these issues because I'm of the opinion that the veil means whatever a woman who's wearing a veil wants it to mean. There is no, for some it's a symbol of oppression, for some it's a symbol of feminism, for some it's a symbol of the West, for some it's a symbol of the East. But we do have to recognize that, there are countries in the world, particularly in the Middle East, in which women do not have the same legal or social rights as men. And that in many cases this is about as much about ethnicity and tribe and local culture as it is about religion. That in a sense this is as much a problem of economic and social development as it is about cultural and religious issues. But we have to, I think, be wary of making blanket statements about what a woman chooses to wear. In the New York Times today, there was an article about France's attempts to ban the niqab, that veil that covers the entire face except for the eyes, and which 0.1% of Muslims in France wear. I'm not sure what the need is to actually go through a legislative attempt, to actually ban something that 0.1% of women wear. But it's not about the veil. It's about cultural ideas about identity. It's about France trying to say that we are something, and what we are is not this. So I think we should just sort of step back for a moment. There's a real genuine discussion that needs to be had about women's rights in some majority Muslim countries, particularly in the Middle East. But nevertheless, we have to be careful about making certain generalizations and objectifying women by sort of assuming that because you choose to put a piece of cloth over your head, then you are oppressed in some sense.
Right, and a lot of Muslim women have told me that this veiling, as it were, this covering the hair, of course, is not unique to Islam. You'll find it in Judaism and Christianity. But let me ask you this: you're talking about the attempt to ban the niqab in France. In this country, in Oklahoma, there's been an attempt to ban the hijab in driver's license photos. And also I noticed that in Oregon, a law is set to take effect in January that bans religious garb, teachers in public schools from wearing religious garb, which means, Muslim women who wear hijab cannot wear that.
That's all it means. This is how France got away with it as well. They said, well, but we're not just banning the veil, we're banning all conspicuous religious garb. Not sure what they actually mean by that, because most Christians I know don't wear life-size crosses around their necks. You put a cross into your shirt. The issue here is, I think that there is this sort of fear of otherness, again, that I have to go back to over and over again. We in the United States, however, find what's going on in Europe as kind of odd. I mean, you could be completely racist in the United States. You could, want all immigration to stop, and you may see Muslims as demonic enemies. But if you were asked, should the government force you to wear or not wear certain clothing, you would be appalled by such a thing. And yet, this is precisely what's taking place in Europe. There's a real difference in the way that we think about personal freedoms and the rights of the government to impinge on those freedoms in the name of cultural identity, and certainly in the way that you see in the UK and in France.
We're going to take another question from the audience. It's, do you have any suggestions for building bridges of understanding among Muslims, Christians, Jews, and members of other faith communities? And I know that's a very, big question to ask, but can you answer that?
Well, it's happening in the United States. We are, without question, the most religiously diverse nation in the history of the world. We have no choice but to live with each other and to absorb other cultures or their ideals. People ask me all the time, what is the difference between Islam in the U.S. and Islam in Europe? And there are a whole host of issues that have to be brought to bear. Certainly economics plays a role, when I've mentioned that in some sense. Issues of identity play a role as well. Many countries in Europe are having a very difficult time constructing an identity that is not based around a sense of cultural or ethnic homogeneity that just simply doesn't exist anymore. Whereas in the United States, we've never had ethnic or cultural homogeneity, and so we've never dealt with that kind of challenge. But I would say the principal difference between Muslim life in America and Muslim life in Europe is that in the United States, we believe that religion is a positive thing, that it should play some role in society. It shouldn't infringe on people who don't hold religious faith, but it certainly shouldn't be excised from the public realm either. And so, in a sense, we're comfortable with displays of religiosity. We may look at a Muslim praying, it may look odd to us. It may look unfamiliar, the yogic postures, the unfamiliar utterings, but we still recognize it and in fact value it as prayer. And so in a sense, it's that common sense that religion is powerful, it can be positive, it does have a role in society that allows for the building of bridges between various religious communities in the United States in a way that you don't see anywhere else in the world. It also creates, I think, an enormous responsibility because, frankly, if Americans can't figure out a way for interreligious dialogue, interreligious pluralism, and interreligious action, then we're really screwed as a world because it's not going to happen anywhere else.